You will meet a lot of different kinds of people when you play tabletop role-playing games, from the min-maxers to the role players and everyone in between. Sometimes when you sit down at a table, someone will introduce their character and they will start telling you every little detail about what that character has done up to this point. They know where that character was born, they know who their parents are, they know what they had for breakfast on June 25th of 1996. They know their favorite color. They know how they will respond in a crisis situation. Maybe that's you. If you're not one of those people, or even if you are, we need to unpack a little bit about what's going on here. The desire to know all of these intimate details about your character is totally valid. It means you're someone who's really interested in digging deep into what makes that character tick. But I want to caution you from going too heavy into this kind of train of thought, because you can run the risk of having nothing else for your character to do for the rest of the story. So today, on Dungeon Discourse, let's talk about whether or not your character has already been solved before the game even begins. So, what do I mean by your character is solved? Well, when you're playing a character that already has all this information about who they are, where they've come from, what they do, you know most of their background because you enjoy writing it in your spare time, or you've done a bunch of exercises or have used worksheets or things like that to help you figure those things out. It's good to know those kinds of things because then you can kind of convey your character a little more realistically if you are someone that really likes to dive into that kind of role-playing aspect. If you know what someone did in the past when they came across a challenging situation, you know how they might respond in the future, or you might know how a past trauma or a past success informs the way that they look at the world now. Great. But your character at the beginning of a story is still sort of starting their career, or is at the beginning of a particular narrative. They haven't gone through the most challenging things of this particular story. Let's look at D&D for a hot second. So if you go to your player's handbook, almost every single campaign of Dungeons & Dragons assumes that you are starting at first level. First level character is just starting out in their adventuring career. They may have done other things in the past. They may have studied at a magical academy. They may have been a soldier. They may have been a seafaring merchant. They may have just been a street urchin and are only just now going adventuring as a teenager or an adolescent. All of those characters have not done the most challenging things ahead of them. Even if they are adventuring at 50 or 60 or 200 if you're an elf or a dwarf, you still haven't done the biggest parts of your career. A lot of people have a tendency to write character stories which are about how they slayed a dragon that was attacking their town, or how they stole a remarkable treasure or magical artifact, or how they negotiated a peace treaty between the Feywild and the mortal realms. These are all amazing stories, but if the most important thing to that character, or the most exciting thing about that character, happened in the past, off screen, why are we seeing them now? Right? What can that character bring to the table? What can that character bring to the story that we're going to see happen? If they're already an incredibly trained killer and an assassin and have killed notable political figures in the past, or if they're already like the world's greatest swordsmith, or a great magic user, an incredibly accomplished ritualist or wizard, why are they adventuring now? Why are we seeing them at this point in the story? An interesting way to riff on these kinds of epic backstories is to say that that is something that happened long ago in the past of your character, and now you're just getting going for the second time. You're getting your second wind. The campaign that I have really wanted to try and run is a midlife crisis game where everyone is sort of washed up adventurers whose salad days are long past them, and have had to settle for various kinds of occupations outside of adventuring, and are now trying to reclaim that glory for themselves, getting one last hurrah. Maybe they have killed a dragon in the past, but now they've been waiting tables at the local tavern for so long that dragon slaying is something that they would never consider until they're dragged back into adventure. That can be a really cool story. The challenge with knowing all of these things about your character is that it's hard for the story to advance in certain places. It can be hard for you to get outside of your own head about what you know about the character and thinking, well, my character wouldn't do X, Y, and Z because blah, 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 blah. I already know that they have done this thing in the past, and so they wouldn't do it again. Or my character is too smart to do something. They wouldn't get caught by that trap. They wouldn't get caught by this ambush. They wouldn't go into this dangerous situation. You might know that, and you might want to be protective of your character, but also your character is a vehicle for the story of the game, and there are other people at this table playing the game with you. If you really know everything there is to know about this character, and you want to tell that story that's sort of already pre-written in your mind, may I humbly suggest that you write a short story about them, or you write some fanfic about your own character. That can be a great creative exercise. But I think the reason why most of us play story games, role-playing games of any kind, is that we don't know what's going to happen. We want to know what happens when our character gets to the Forbidden Bridge across the Sea of Woe and crosses into the realm of the Sea Lords. We want to know what happens when our character is faced with the realization that they are from a cursed bloodline and that they must inherit a throne of a dying nation. We want to know what happens to our characters when these things come up in the story, because we're kind of pushing and pulling along with the GM, who is as much of a storyteller as we are. In games that are powered by the apocalypse, we call this playing to find out what happens. So how can you write a character that is not solved? You can still write things down about who your character is and what they do, what they've done in the past, but try and leave as many open spaces as possible and leave a lot of questions to be answered. When you're building a character with other people, you can start asking questions like, how do we know each other? Have we met before? Do I have a secret that I'm keeping from you? Or I think I have done you a great service in the past and I owe you a favor. Determining what the answers to those questions are is a good way of not only building up a shared backstory for your whole party so that the group feels more cohesive and you have a better basis to tell your story on, but it's also a way of looping around to those questions that you've been asking about who your character is and what they do and what they know without answering too many things all at once. It's okay to not know what your character's favorite color is, or what their favorite food is, or how they will respond in a dangerous situation, what their greatest fears are. You can find those out during play, but as long as you have the basic skeleton of what they have done in the past and where they're coming from and where their head's at, where their skill set comes from, then you can use that as a springboard to answer more questions about your character in the future. So let's break it down for a second. If I am going into a game and I'm going to be playing a wizard, I'm going to be playing a wizard in a high fantasy game. Well, do I know how I got my magical powers? Is it something that is inborn? Are wizards in this game more like D&D sorcerers, where they're just born with magic? Is everyone born with magic and only wizards are the ones that have learned how to use the potential that's inside of them? Is magic a trade the way that blacksmithing is? And I just happen to go to wizard trade school. Is that what Wizards Academy is? My character is an elf. Okay, what are the elves like? Where do they come from? Are there subgroups of elves? Are there different elven ethnicities that my character is from? How do the elves view magic as opposed to humans or any other race that's in the world? My character has training in herbalism. So where did I learn that? Did I pick it up from, is it a cultural thing for elves? Or elves just more prone towards gardening? Or is it something that I learned in my travels? Did I pick it up from working with a druid? If druids exist in the world, right? Am I a survivalist? Was I stranded out in the woods for a long time, and I learned it because I had to pick up what plants were good and what plants were bad, because I would die if I didn't learn that very quickly. These are questions that I can ask myself just by going off some basic things that are on the sheet, but I'm still not establishing that my character is 300 years old, was born to the line of the Silverhands, who are one of the most important families in the region. At 18, in elf years, I helped dispel a magical curse that was befalling my village, and in thanks, the village elder bequeathed me a magical staff, which is now, that's my regular staff. It's just a regular staff, but in my mind, it has magical powers as me as a player, as opposed to me, the character. And then after that, I went off questing and was at sea, and there was a horrible storm, and I used my magical staff to shield the ship from all those dangers, and everyone loved me because I used my magic to save them. And then I met up with the party, right? So you see where, like, so many interesting things have happened in this person's past that could have happened on camera, in game, with everybody else participating and everyone else's characters having a chance to interact with that story. So you can do cool things in your character background. Don't get me wrong. You can do interesting things and set up interesting story beats and set up things like, my character's on the run for a crime they didn't commit. Great, tell me what that crime is. Do you, the player, know if you committed it or not? My character is trying to get revenge on the person that betrayed their clan. Like, cool, who is that person? What is your clan? What is the crime? What is the severity of that crime? My character is trying to recover lost knowledge from their civilization after it fell. Okay, when did your civilization fall? How long has it been since the event that caused that fall? What information are you looking for specifically? And what do you hope to find? And where do you hope to find it? And is that why you're adventuring with these people? Or are you hoping that you will find it in the course of adventuring on something completely unrelated? Coming up with all of these little seeds for your character is important for giving them drive in the story, as long as everything that you're coming up with is something that you can see happening during the game and that your character has not already accomplished their life's work, essentially, before the game even starts. So the next time you have to roll up a character for any RPG, try and draw out some basic information about your character. But if you're the kind of player that likes to write every single thing down and know everything there is to know about your character and all of their backstory, consider trying just writing a few bullet points about who your character is, where they learned their talents, why they're adventuring, why they're with this group, and going from there, just starting with some really bare bones bullet points and letting the rest of that information come out as you role play. I think you'll find that it's a little more interesting that rather than know all of the deep, dark secrets of your character and all of their little personality quirks and traits and things, rather than knowing that ahead of time, it can be more exciting to find out what those are in the moment, in the heat of the story. That's going to do it for this video on asking yourself if your character is already solved. If you'd like to find me on social media, you can do that on Twitter at Lucha Libris. If you enjoyed this video and you found it useful or entertaining, don't forget to give me a like. And if you'd like to see more of it in the future, click the subscribe button and don't forget to ring the bell so you never miss an update. I'm going to be gone for a little bit because I will be GMing for Magpie Games at Gen Con next week, but in the meantime, take +1 forward to act on this information, and I'll see you in the next video.